Hello, everyone. My name is AlexUnreliable, and today I have a residential speed build for you. I also have those funky little edits I know you guys like so much. At this point, I had a very good idea for what I wanted everything to look like because this was, in fact, my third attempt. I don't use floor plans for my builds. I like to make my own layouts, and that ultimately ends up with a lot of experimenting. The final build has 3 floors, 3 bedrooms, and 2 full bathrooms. We've also got all of the essentials, which includes a kitchen, living room, dining area, and laundry room. I wanted to build something old and woodsy, but I wanted to stay away from feeling like it belonged in Granite Falls. I actually had a lot of non specific requirements like that, and it made the whole thing very overwhelming. I got burnt out about halfway through recording. Specifically, I really struggled with the exterior textures. I went with this brown wooden siding and eventually a stone feature in the front. It looks really good on the world menu, so ultimately I was satisfied after I got through the burnout, that is. There are a lot of details I feel like I can personally appreciate, and I hope a lot of others will too. It's a lot more noticeable inside, but I'm talking about details like light switches and ceiling fixtures, and a lot of the clutter and how intentional it actually is. Everything felt personal, and I actually did a lot less experimenting at this point in the process, mostly. For constructing a shell, I'll use influences from the surrounding architecture and landscape, and the interiors are designed for the specific sims that use them. For this build, all of the decor, clutter, and features you'll see are made with the O'Connors in mind. This is a small family you can find in Copperdale. So without further ado, let's introduce you to we have Ron and Rosie, the twins, and Beatrice O'Connor, their mother. The kids have lived in Copperdale their whole lives, born and raised in this old house. The teens are outgrowing it now, and they all make the most of the space. The main themes I tried to bring into the build surround the aesthetic and feelings of a family made up of unique individuals who all have their own lives and dreams. I wanted to give the space the vibe of these people love each other, but also in a chaotic, cramped family way. I almost personified the house at this point. It feels very alive with all of the little bits every sim ends up bringing into it. Even though this whole thing was kind of a drag to build, I ended up really happy with most of the end result. I don't love the front porch as much as other parts of the house. I knew I wanted a paneling, but I also felt like I was going a little heavy on the wood at this point. I'm not sure what a good alternative would have been, but I'm open to ideas. The landscape painting for this lot was minimal besides the garage, just a grassy ring around the building and some darker mud patches around trees and stones, which I added later. It's not the smallest lot I've had to work with, but there wasn't much room for a backyard or a proper fence. Sometimes I wish I was using custom content for a wider variety of choices, but it's just not typically cohesive enough for what I'm trying to accomplish, and it would make downloading the save file a lot more annoying. You can find so many little bits of influence from the family scattered throughout the home. Rosie's music, nail polish, and band memorabilia, Ron's art projects, old and new, and Beatrice's garden, which has outgrown the backyard and now fills up the corners of every room. I start with a lot of foliage just to emphasize the overgrown feeling. I add in a few trees and check the debug menu for anything I might want to clutter the area with. I knew in the beginning I wanted 2 defined spaces outside, one for Beatrice's garden and one for the twins to hang out with friends. This 4x3 paver section ended up being the perfect space for Bee's area. I filled it in with a variety of outdoor activities like the Burt's Bees box and flower arrangement table. I placed a few different functional plant pots from a variety of packs. I also wanted to make the area feel isolated and a little bit protected from the public, but the lot size is a little restrictive, so I did what I could. I added a lot of fun little details here that pulled the space together. Beatrice O'Connor maintains a variety of herbs, fruits, and vegetables for her restaurant across town. I shifted a few decorations around, polished up the landscape painting, and after a final check, I moved on to the second outdoor area on the lot. Instead of a typical outdoor hangout for the twins, I opted for a clothesline in a shady area to the side. I imagined the family hang drying sheets in the sunny weather with a little lawn chair for any company and a few more garden pots for any plants that just might need a little more shade. At this point in the video, I am looking for decorations in both the debug menu and in the clutter menu. I ultimately relied on landscaping to finish off the look. I added these small bunches of white flowers that actually surround the lot itself. It felt like a nice detail, pulling the lot into the space around it. I also placed these nice garden pavers from the debug menu to tie each area together. I hate it when I go into the build menu looking for a car and I accidentally pick a toy car instead of a debug model, like the really small one. I definitely struggled at this point with picking a vehicle for the family. I didn't think the small car was suitable, and I didn't like a lot of the SUV models, so eventually I settled on a pickup. I imagined it was good for the family to share, good for hauling large amounts of ingredients or band equipment, or just a little drive to Teeter Stop. Here I go in with debug and add more details, test a few ideas, and finish off the foliage in the front yard. I was trying to get the flow of the house to go full circle, and I had to make sure going from one side to the other felt like you were still on the same lot. I finish off the landscape painting with some tire marks in the garage, and I clean up the grass line that I pushed in too far. The whole time I was working on this space, I just wished I had a hanging seat. I almost attempted my own, but it wouldn't have been functional, so I went with a minimal seating. The golden red chairs aren't the ones we end up using, but you can see where my head was at this point. I used the mailbox with the stone base, but honestly, I should have used the cat mailbox now that I think about it, and you'll see why in just a minute. Now that we're closer to the inside, I'm bringing in more aspects for the family pet. I think this is when the burnout started to set in, and you can kind of just tell based on the way I struggle with decorating this area. There's a few details that don't stay in the end, like the string lights across the front of the windows. I don't delete them right away, but I didn't keep them in the final build. I started checking the way the house looks on the gallery at this point, and I was seriously unhappy with it. I figured I needed a break from the exterior, even if it made the recording a little bit back and forth, so that's what I did. After a quick pick me up, I went ahead and got to work on separating the first floor into rooms. In the top right, we have a bathroom and a hallway, basement slash landing. The left side of the first floor is made up of the kitchen, pantry, and dining room, and the largest interior room is the living area. Once I've got my walls and floors into place, I start with the family living area. We've got even more wood here, but I actually really love the look of this build. Something I've mentioned earlier was how I use the surrounding area to consider the architecture for my builds. And one of the things you see here is I use this boob light on the ceiling. It's a pretty dated fixture, but also they're in every other older home in my area. I've got a single boob light in my actual house, right in the middle of the hallway. I wanted to establish a base for the aesthetic that felt like Beatrice O'Connor herself probably attempted to bring her personal style into the home before the kids were older. She chose all of the wall colors on the main and upper floors, and she picked out all of the major furnishings on those floors as well. But when you live with a family, things sneak in here and there, and you can see that as time has passed. The twins have made their own space in every room. I think I used all of the space pretty well, but there's always a better way. After I felt like I had a good foundation for every room, all of my doors and windows placed, and main traffic areas visualized, I went ahead and started decorating the living room. I fell in love with yellow in this room. Even though I didn't use the knitted yellow rug, I couldn't get the inspiration out of my head, and I did eventually place this striped one that felt more suitable. I brought in these white weathered pieces of furniture, starting with this under TV piece for the entertainment center. We also get to see a build technique I saw on Instagram, and I'm boiling with rage because I still don't know how to effectively play this game after all this time. But it's fine. I placed objects on the piece of furniture I want to decorate and pull the furniture out so that I can move them with bb.move shit and alt into the perfect cluttered mess. I know I didn't explain that very well, but if you watch, you'll see me use this technique a lot in the interior. I really liked the way a lot of the furniture doesn't perfectly match. It feels real, or maybe I'm just telling myself that because I don't know what I'm actually missing. I imagine Bee keeps a lot of photos and memories. She never takes down anything she puts up, and over the years, the walls have filled up with Ron's old art projects and Rosie's holiday crafts, in between family portraits and cat themed calendars. This was actually a really enjoyable part for me, and I was regaining some of my confidence. I realized how much I enjoyed cluttering surfaces in this game. It's a lot better when you aren't trying to snap to the preset grid. Now that we're inside, you can actually see a few of those details I mentioned before start to be placed. The light switches next to the door add a lot to the room, even though it's just a small addition. I wanted to keep the high traffic areas clear and I wanted everything to feel cohesive, but living rooms are probably the most difficult for me. I know it's not actually relevant in the game, but I think about how the room lighting is going to affect the television, and I get annoyed because there's never anywhere to place it where there wouldn't be a real life glare on the screen. I think that might be one of the more extreme details of how I think when I'm decorating. I definitely struggled here. I loved the big boxy old computer, but I couldn't really find any wall decor I clicked with. You can kind of tell I'm itching to move on at this point, and I was getting frustrated with choosing a doormat that I liked. It's a weird thing to get frustrated about, so in between rooms, I actually took a break. I wanted to give the house the feeling of a small family outgrowing their space. The dining room has hints of a former organization, but everything has been pushed to the side. Family dinners at home are rare when Beatrice has a restaurant to run and the kids are growing into their own lives. I figured if they do have dinner together, they probably just eat at the diner before B closes up for the night. So, really, this space is just for the twins to have snacks or do homework. I'm not really sure how other people decorate dining rooms, but I wanted to be a little formal. That is framed art, like one piece of framed art. I didn't end up keeping it, and eventually I filled in that corner with a small chalkboard menu. And then we move on to the kitchen. Originally, I planned it to be a galley kitchen, but I had more room than I expected. I also struggled with deciding if the kitchen was an important room to the family. Food is a big part of Bee's life, but I decided she doesn't ultimately use her kitchen at home too much and instead does most of her cooking in her industry grade kitchen across town. The twins, however, probably use the kitchen for a lot of instant meals and PBJ sandwiches. So, with that in mind, I decorated the kitchen as if it was being regularly used by these kids. I did try to fill up as much of the counters as I could without ruining the functionality of the space. Something you don't see in the build is where I spend like 80 hours creating the ancestry for this family and taking photos of every stage. So if you see a wall and it feels like there should be something there, it's because I'm going to fill it in with family photos. That's also something I have decided to reserve for downloads instead of showing everyone here. Just more mystery spice in the AU save file soup. Even though I was happy with the end result, I really hated building this. In the previous attempt at this lot, I actually ruined my video with the pantry footage because I couldn't find a good angle to build and record at. You can even see bits where I shifted the camera a little to try and get a better view for placing items. It's not the worst, it's just not good either. And if I went back and worked on this again, I would definitely refine this space. I feel like the quality doesn't compare to other rooms in the house. Specifically, this top right corner where I've split the area between a large full bathroom and a hallway to the basement. I'm comparing this room to the pantry because they're both spaces you don't typically find in most builds. I wanted it to be wider than a hallway and larger than a landing because the basement is more of a core feature than an afterthought in this point in the process. I was really happy with every part in this room, from the tile floors to the cat corner. The pantry felt like a waste of space, but this room felt meaningful. The wall decorations are a mix of extras you'd find in a hallway, and more family specific details like the cork board and cat calendar. Because the basement is where the twins' bedrooms are, I wanted to make it feel like this room was a transition from public to private. I added the music banner above the steps and a few rugs to soften the tiles. Another detail I really like in this room are the cat scratches around the corner. It makes it feel like they've lived here for a while, and it's not like this is a freshly painted home. I moved to the bathroom after this room. I start like I did in the other areas with finding flooring and wallpaper that feels cohesive with the rest of the house. I chose these mint tones and went with a split level separating the closet from the main bathroom features. It's something I decided to try out after I saw a bunch of platform tutorials. I was really happy with how it gave me another dimension of the room to work with. I used a lot of the clutter from the bathroom kit in this room. I hate paying for details like plungers and soap, but Paralive still isn't out, so I think I successfully made this room feel like something the family uses on the regular. It's not too small for them, and it has a nice space for storage and getting ready. Instead of the boob light, I went with wall sconces. It gave the room a nice pinkish orange glow. Per usual, I finish off with a few small details, some framed art, wall switches, and laundry baskets. The last room to work on for the main floor is the garage, which I had definitely been putting off up until this point. I think I was avoiding it because, unlike other rooms, I had no idea what I wanted this to look like. On the far side of the garage, I decided to place a cat crate and a few fun lawn chairs. Here's where I imagined Ron and Rosie go to hang out on summer mornings. I threw in two basic shelves propped up on cement blocks and a third metal storage rack. I went in with a few debug items and some clutter, filled in the shelves, corners, and lined the walls with relevant decor like bags of cat food and tires. I filled in the space with wall decor, another whiteboard, a coat rack, and a broom. I also added this tapestry that felt like a random piece of art they've used to cover some giant hole in the garage wall. Once I finished up with this corner, I had a better feeling about the garage as a whole, and you can kind of start to see how my decorating gets more intentional. I finish off the garage with some wall art, and I rough up the drywall with a few patches. I do jump outside before we head upstairs to fix up the exterior and landscape that got messed up when I made the split level. The process is almost identical to the first floor. I break the space up into rooms, but this time I'm freestyling a little more than before. I settle on a pretty simple floor plan that includes a hallway, hall closet, a master bedroom, a master bathroom, and an office. Since you've already got a basic idea of the process at this point, I'll focus on the Sims who use these rooms rather than discuss my own thought process behind building. I've talked about the O'Connor family a little bit already, but I haven't really provided you with anything substantial yet. I'll go ahead and remind you the O'Connors are the residents of this home. Ron and Rosie are the teenage twins in their second year of high school, and Beatrice, or B, is their mother, who works full time running her own business, a small town diner across the lake. Various extended family members related to the O'Connors can be met and played, either as townies or in world residents. You can also interact with their friends, romantic interests, and maybe even discover a few secrets along the way. Not only will this lot be available for download on the gallery following this video, soon you'll be able to download the entire O'Connor family, extended and all, in the AlexUnreliable save file. The second floor is where Beatrice spends most of her time when she's at home. The master bedroom, which we're working on now, belongs to her. She's filled the room with happy colors and memories of her kids. It's got a natural vibe, with branches detailed in the bedside tables and plants pouring off of every flat surface and springing up from every corner. Beatrice O'Connor was born and raised in Copperdale like her own children. Not only that, she's a twin herself. Her sister is a city native who doesn't have kids of her own, but visits often to spoil her niece and nephew. As for the girl's mother, she's retired to Sunset Valley Nursing Home. When Beatrice had just become a young adult, her sister and mother had moved away. Bea had found herself alone in Copperdale. She worked as a waitress in a small burger shop. It was there where she met and fell in love with a wealthy man. Beatrice won't talk about it anymore. The twins say that she still hurts from the loss. According to Beatrice, he passed shortly after Bea found out she was pregnant. It was a tragic affair. He was fixing a computer in a puddle of water when a killer rabbit appeared from the shadows. Apparently, he ran away in fear, fatal fear. But in the end, it was while running from the killer rabbit, he slipped and fell into a pool with no ladder. The rest is history. B has raised Ron and Rosie alone, and has no desire to get back into the dating game after last time. She's got too much to focus on anyway. Between being a single mother and a restaurant owner, it's not like she would have the time for a significant other. At least that's what she tells people. Beatrice is scatterbrained, to say the least. She's got a lot on her plate and struggles with managing finances for a business and a household simultaneously. But she finds some peace when she goes upstairs to her personal space. Usually, the only company she has on this floor is that of Madame Princess, the Calico Cat. The other rooms on this floor are also essentially bees, but you know how it is when you have a family. The small purple office was set up originally to separate work and home funds and paperwork. It's mostly used by Rosie now when Ron is hogging the family computer downstairs or her laptop is dead. A lot of the walls on this floor are saved blank for family photos and the kids' old crafts and art projects that B refuses to take down, despite the best effort of Ron and Rosie. The extra space is used for household clutter, decor, and most importantly, cat beds, towers, and scratch posts. By now, you should know I do a final sweep over the floor, adding extra details to various walls and rooms. I check a few different perspectives to make sure I'm liking what I see, and once that's done, we get to move on to the final and my favorite floor of the house, the basement. My process again is pretty similar to the other floors. I establish a layout for the space: two bedrooms, a laundry room, a hallway, and a closet. This is the most unique area as far as style goes. I use different ceiling fixtures and I bring down that terracotta tile from the landing upstairs. I filled in the hallway with some household clutter, and I imagined that originally the basement wasn't finished and that the home relied on it for storage. First, let's talk about Rosie O'Connor, since her room is where we start here. She's in her second year of high school, and if she had it her way, she'd test out with her friends and they would hit the road together. They'd go somewhere like Del Sol Valley and they'd play music for tips at bars until they made it big. She could see it clearer and clearer every day. For now, though, she would have to wait with everyone else in this small town. It's only another 2 years till graduation. To Rosie, the valley where Copperdale sits was akin to a sinkhole, and she intends to escape. Rosie plays the guitar in her girlfriend's parents' garage with a handful of other friends. Together, they make up the Last Dag Dag, a teenage dream band set on success. Who knows for sure if they'll make it big one day? Rosie always figured even if the band doesn't stick together, she could always make it as a solo act, so she has that going for her at least. Her best friend, unsurprisingly, is her twin brother, but sometimes she feels like they're worlds apart. Ron likes Copperdale, just like their mom. Rosie relates more to her Aunt Bean than her own mom. Beatrice's twin, Aunt Bean, left Copperdale before the kids were born, but she comes through town pretty often. Rosie's favorite summers are the ones she spends in San Myshuno, sleeping on Aunt Bean's couch in her small high-rise apartment. The bedrooms are pretty personal to each sim. I incorporated a lot of their favorite colors and activities. I felt like they probably just use this hallway space for extra household clutter that won't fit anywhere else. I used a lot of pink, blue, and purple for Rosie's bedroom, and I doubled down on the pride with a bi flag over her bed frame. I gave Madame Princess another space down here, with a larger bed that matches the decor. I finish off Rosie's room with a few small details, and that will bring us to the last room in this house. It also brings us to the last member of the O'Connor family. Ron is Rosie's brother and twin, and Beatrice's son. He's in his second year of high school, like his sister, but he's got no interest in moving away like she does. He doesn't mind school. In fact, he's actually pretty good at it, top of his class. His favorite subject is science, and when Rosie isn't making him listen to a new song or test her sound equipment, he spends his free time painting. For him, painting is all science, really, and a little math, lots of geometry. While Rosie has the next 10 years planned out step for step, Ron is a little more lax about his future. He's more interested in enjoying the moment, but that could just be his excuse for not being able to decide between college and freelance art. Not to mention, with Rosie's plans to skip town the day after graduation, someone has to stay with Bee. Ron knows she wants him to get into food and management, take over the diner when she retires. But he doesn't have the heart to tell her it's not what he wants. For now, he's taking in the time with his family. He helps Rosie with her music, and he's letting Bee teach him how to cook and bake dishes from the restaurant. Beatrice, Rosie, and Ron O'Connor make up the small, tightly knit household living at 901 Small Falls Avenue, Plumbite Cove, Copperdale. They are the first family to be revealed for the AU save file, so let's review. Bee is the breadwinner, a single mother who enjoys gardening, baking, cooking, and loves her family more than anything. Her life's work lies in a diner across town, a small business she built from the ground up. She's a daughter, a sister, a business owner, a mother, and a friend to many. Her children, Ron and Rosie, are twins. They each have their own lives, friends, and dreams. Rosie plans on making it big as a rock star and leaving her hometown as soon as possible. Ron is taking his time, enjoying his teenage years, exploring his options, and ultimately still trying to find his way and his place. The family cat is a calico named Madame Princess, and she is pampered, spoiled, and playful. She likes fish and the color green. And I think that's a wrap on today's speed build. I'd actually be interested in hearing what kind of changes you guys would have made for this house. Specifically, I want advice on the front of the property because I'm still not sure I'm happy with it. If you are interested in hearing more about the save file, go ahead and subscribe. The first download will be available on my website free upon completion of Mad Maxis Valley, which consists of 3 separate worlds. Next up, I will be giving Lighthouse Lane the love it deserves, which will be the last video for Plumbite Cove.